After the Galactic War, a human soldier was assigned an alien girl to protect. The once bright stars had been shadowed by fleets of warships, and the sounds of battle had been a constant companion. But now, silence stretched across the universe, a quiet that was almost too strange for someone who had known nothing but conflict. Elias stood on the deck of the Starlight Vanguard, staring out at the glittering stars. The war had left him tired, but he had learned to hide that fatigue behind a mask of calm authority. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the distant worlds looking for the next assignment. He was a soldier, and soldiers always had missions. The message came suddenly, blinking on the ship's control panel. Elias tapped it open, and the words made him pause. Captain Kane, your next assignment. Protect Lyra, last known descendant of the Lytheran royal line. Destination, planet Lythera. Mission priority, maximum, details attached. Lythera. Elias had heard of the planet before, a world known for its strange forests, floating mountains, and mysterious energy storms. It was beautiful in stories, but in war, beauty often hid danger. And Lyra, he had never met her. He didn't even know what she looked like. He frowned. Protect a child? An alien child? After years of fighting, after seeing friends and enemies die, this seemed like an unusual assignment. Not that Elias ever questioned orders openly, but he could not help the small, cynical voice in his head that wondered, why me? Why this mission? Still, there was no room for hesitation. Orders were orders. The next day, he arrived on Lythera. The planet was more stunning than he had imagined. Towering forests with leaves that shimmered in shades of blue and gold stretched across the land. Rivers ran like liquid crystal, reflecting light in dazzling patterns. Floating mountains hovered in the sky, held by some mysterious force that humans had yet to understand. Elias disembarked from his ship and stepped onto the soft moss of the landing zone. The air smelled fresh, tinged with something almost sweet. He scanned the area, his hand resting near the hilt of his blaster out of habit. There was no sign of danger, but years of war had taught him that appearances were often deceptive. And then he saw her. Lyra stood a short distance away, watching him with wide, intelligent eyes. She was small, barely taller than a human child of 10 years, but there was something in her gaze that made Elias pause. Her skin glowed faintly in the sunlight, a pale shade of lilac, and her hair shimmered silver, falling straight to her shoulders. She wore simple clothing, but it was unlike anything Elias had seen, a tunic of soft, flowing material that seemed to shift colors slightly when she moved. Lyra tilted her head, curious but cautious. She did not smile or speak immediately, but Elias felt as if she was studying him, measuring him. It was unsettling. Most humans her age would run, hide, or cry at the sight of a stranger. But Lyra, she was calm, almost unafraid. Elias cleared his throat. "I'm Captain Elias Kane," he said in his usual steady tone. "I've been assigned to protect you." Lyra's eyes widened slightly at the word protect, and she took a small step back. "Protect me? Why?" she asked, her voice soft, melodic, and strangely musical. Elias had to listen carefully. It wasn't a human language, but he had trained to understand alien dialects. "You're important," he replied. "Very important. People who want to harm you are still out there. My job is to keep you safe." She frowned, as if trying to understand him. Then, after a long pause, she said, "I don't need protection. I can." She stopped herself, glancing at him, unsure if she should continue. Elias noticed the hesitation. There was pride there, but also fear. "I know you can take care of yourself," he said, keeping his voice calm. "But there are some things even the strongest need help with. Trust me, I've seen what happens when you face danger alone." Lyra considered this for a moment. Finally, she nodded slightly, though her expression remained serious. "Then I will go with you," she said. Elias allowed himself a small sigh of relief, not because she agreed, but because she hadn't run. That alone was a good sign. The first few days were awkward. Elias set up a temporary base near a small clearing, and he taught Lyra the basics of survival: how to recognize danger in the forest, how to hide tracks, and how to communicate silently in emergencies. She was a quick learner, absorbing everything with an almost frightening speed. Elias realized that while she looked like a child, her mind was far older than her body suggested. At night, they sat near a small fire, the flames flickering against the trees. Lyra watched him silently as he polished his equipment. Finally, she asked, "Did you fight in the war?" Elias' hand paused over his blaster. "I did," he said slowly. "I fought many battles. Some I won, some I lost." He stared into the fire, memories of distant planets and fallen comrades rising unbidden. I've seen a lot of people die. Lyra's eyes were wide, but there was no fear, only curiosity. Did it make you stronger? She asked. He considered the question carefully. I don't know if it made me stronger, he admitted. It made me careful. I've learned to value life, not just my own, but the lives of others. That's why I'm here now, protecting you. She nodded slowly, as if trying to understand the weight of his words. Silence fell between them, but it was not uncomfortable. It was a quiet moment of understanding, an unspoken connection forming between the human soldier and the alien girl. The peace was short-lived. On the fourth day, while Elias was scouting the nearby forest, he noticed movement, shadows slipping between the trees. His military instincts kicked in immediately. Something was watching them. He returned to Lyra quickly and said, "We might not be alone." Lyra's expression remained calm, but Elias could see a flicker of concern in her eyes. She didn't panic. Instead, she nodded. "I have felt them," she said softly. "They are close." Elias checked his blaster and motioned for her to follow him. "Stay close and do exactly what I say," he warned. "No sudden movements." As they moved through the trees, Elias realized that Lyra was more than just a child he needed to protect. She had a way of sensing danger, almost like a sixth sense. It reminded him that humans were not the only species capable of extraordinary abilities. Hours passed, and the shadows never revealed themselves fully. But Elias knew this. The galaxy was still dangerous. Even after the war, people, or creatures, were willing to hunt the vulnerable. And Lyra, as the last of her kind, was the most vulnerable target of all. That night, back at their base, Elias looked at Lyra, who was quietly watching the stars. "You're going to need to trust me," he said, "because I can't protect you if you don't trust me." She didn't speak immediately. After a long moment, she said, "I trust you for now." Elias allowed himself a small, tired smile. That's a start. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. Lithra was full of mysteries, some beautiful, some deadly. And somewhere out there, enemies still lingered, waiting for the right moment to strike. But for the first time in a long time, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in years. A sense of purpose that wasn't just about survival or orders. It was about protection, about hope, about ensuring that life, no matter the species, could continue in a galaxy scarred by war. And as he watched Lyra, small and brave under the alien sky, he realized something else. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't just in its weapons or strategy. Perhaps it was in its courage, its loyalty, and its willingness to protect the weak, even when the odds were against them. The war had ended, but a new mission had begun. And for Elias Kane, that mission was just as important as any battle he had ever fought. The morning light on Lithra was soft, painting the forest in shades of gold and green. Captain Elias Kane adjusted the straps of his pack and checked his equipment. Lyra walked beside him, her silver hair glinting in the sun. Despite her small size, she moved confidently, as if she had lived in these forests all her life. Elias had planned to scout the nearby area, mapping safe routes and resources, when he noticed something unusual. Birds and small creatures in the forest had gone quiet. The gentle hum of Lithra's wildlife seemed to hold its breath. Elias' instincts told him that danger was near. "We need to move carefully," he whispered to Lyra. She nodded, her large violet eyes scanning the trees. Elias had learned that Lyra could sense things that he could not, an instinct, almost like a warning system. Suddenly, a rustle came from the dense underbrush. Elias raised his blaster and Lyra crouched beside him, her small hands steady despite the sudden threat. Shadows moved quickly, and before Elias could react fully, a group of armed figures emerged from the trees. "They've found us," Elias muttered, his heart tightening. The figures were human-looking, but not entirely human. Their armor was dark and sleek, with strange insignias that Elias did not recognize. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, capable of cutting through metal like it was paper. These were remnants of the war, mercenaries still loyal to old causes, still hunting those they believed could give them power. Elias fired first, targeting the nearest attacker. His shots were precise, forcing the enemy to take cover. "Run!" he shouted to Lyra. Lyra didn't hesitate. She followed Elias through the forest, her feet moving quickly over roots and uneven ground. They ran, weaving through the trees, while Elias fired at pursuers, his movements practiced and efficient. Despite being tired from the long days of travel and training, his body moved with a soldier's rhythm, fast, precise, and unhesitating. The forest became thicker, the air more humid and heavy. Strange plants with glowing tendrils brushed against their legs, leaving faint marks. Elias ignored the scratches, focusing on keeping them alive. Lyra, however, seemed to thrive in this environment. She darted between trees, sensing hidden paths, almost as if the forest itself guided her. After nearly an hour, they reached a small clearing with a stream running through it. Elias paused to catch his breath, checking the perimeter. Lyra knelt by the water, cupping it in her hands to drink. "They're still following us," Elias said, scanning the tree line. "We need a plan." Lyra looked up at him, her face calm. "We can hide," she said softly. "The forest will help us. I can feel the paths they cannot see." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Paths I cannot see," she nodded. "Follow me." Without waiting for a reply, she led him down a narrow path covered by hanging vines. The forest seemed to close around them, shadows and light shifting in strange patterns. Elias realized that Lyra's presence was more than comforting, it was necessary. She had an uncanny ability to sense danger and find safe routes. Hours passed as they moved quietly, avoiding patrols and dangerous areas. By late afternoon, they reached a cave hidden behind a waterfall. The roaring water concealed their entrance, making it nearly impossible for anyone to detect them. Elias inspected the cave. It was dry and spacious, with natural shelves where they could rest. "This will be our temporary safe spot," he said. Lyra nodded, settling beside him. "Good," she murmured. "They will not find us here, not for a while." As the sun set, Elias kept watch at the cave's entrance. Shadows danced across the rocky walls, and the distant cries of Lithera's wildlife echoed through the forest. Lyra sat quietly, drawing symbols in the dirt with her fingers. Elias watched her, curious. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Marking paths," she replied, "so we remember where it is safe and where it is not." Elias nodded slowly. He realized that this child, this alien girl he had been assigned to protect, was not helpless. She had knowledge, instincts, and intelligence that could save them both. And yet she needed him too, for guidance, for protection. Night fell and the cave grew cold. Elias lit a small fire using a compact device he always carried. The warm glow filled the space, casting long shadows. Lyra watched the flames, fascinated by the flickering light. "Do you ever sleep without thinking about war?" she asked suddenly. Elias chuckled quietly. "Not really. It's hard to turn off your mind after years of fighting, but I've learned that rest is necessary. Even soldiers need it." Lyra nodded slowly. "I have seen fighting too. My people, we lost a lot." Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not cry. "I do not want to see it again." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I won't let anyone hurt you, not while I'm here." The night passed uneventfully, though Elias remained alert. The forest around them was alive with sounds, some comforting, some strange. Every noise made him tense, but he trusted Lyra's instincts. When she whispered warnings, he listened immediately. By morning, they needed to move again. Staying in one place too long was dangerous. Elias checked their supplies and considered their next steps. They needed food, water, and a route to a safer area where they could call for help. As they walked, Elias noticed signs of the mercenaries' recent presence, broken branches, disturbed soil, and faint tracks. He pointed them out to Lyra. "They are close," he said. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. "Yes, they are nearby, but not right behind us. We have time, but not much." Elias felt a mixture of relief and urgency. They had time to plan, but every minute counted. The forest could protect them, but it could also trap them if they were not careful. By mid-afternoon, they reached a high ridge overlooking a valley. From there, they could see the remnants of a destroyed settlement, burned structures, smoldering ruins, and scattered debris. It was a reminder that the war had not truly ended, that danger still lurked everywhere. "We'll have to pass through that area," Elias said, scanning the terrain. "It won't be easy, but it's the fastest route to safety." Lyra nodded. "I will guide you, trust me." Elias took a deep breath. Trusting her was necessary. She led them down a hidden path that twisted through the valley, avoiding the main roads and broken structures. Her instincts were precise, and Elias marveled at her ability to navigate the dangerous terrain. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the valley below. Elias dropped to the ground, signaling Lyra to do the same. Shadows moved quickly among the ruins, mercenaries searching, hunting. "They saw us," Elias whispered. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "No, they have not seen us clearly." Elias nodded. They held their breath, staying perfectly still as the mercenaries passed nearby, their weapons scanning for any sign of movement. Elias felt his heart race, but he controlled his breathing. Every muscle was tense, ready to spring into action if necessary. After what felt like hours, the danger passed. Elias exhaled slowly, relieved. Lyra looked at him with a small, proud smile. "See, I told you we would be safe." Elias allowed himself a rare smile in return. "You're right, for now we are safe." They continued moving until nightfall, eventually finding a dense grove where they could rest. Elias set up a small perimeter, while Lyra helped gather edible plants and fresh water. Her knowledge of the forest was remarkable, and he realized that survival depended on their cooperation. As they sat by the fire, Elias reflected on the day's events. They had survived ambushes, navigated dangerous terrain, and avoided detection. Lyra's abilities, combined with his training, had kept them alive. He felt a sense of pride, not just in himself, but in the girl he was protecting. "You're learning fast," he said, tossing a small piece of dried fruit to her. Lyra caught it effortlessly. "I have to. I cannot let them win. I cannot let anyone take me." Elias nodded. Her determination reminded him why he was there. Protecting her was more than a mission. It was a duty to preserve hope, life, and the future. The fire crackled, and the stars of Lithra shone brightly above them. Elias and Lyra sat in quiet companionship, two unlikely allies bound by necessity, trust, and the will to survive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for tonight they were safe. And for the first time in a long time, Elias felt a glimmer of hope. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but together he and Lyra could face whatever came next. The morning sun of Lithra filtered through the dense canopy, casting long golden beams across the forest floor. Captain Elias' cane stretched and checked their temporary camp. Lyra was already awake, crouched near a small stream, watching the water ripple around smooth stones. Her silver hair glowed in the sunlight, and her violet eyes reflected the early light, filled with quiet determination. "Good morning," Elias said, his voice still low and calm. He noticed her alert posture. "Sleep well?" Lyra looked up and nodded. "Yes, but we cannot stay here long." Elias knew she was right. Each day in the forest was dangerous. Even though the mercenaries hadn't caught them yet, they were still out there hunting. The forest offered temporary safety, but not forever. Elias packed their supplies carefully. Food, water, and equipment had to last as long as possible. Lyra helped silently, her small hands surprisingly efficient. She had learned quickly how to move quietly and observe without being noticed, a skill that would save them many times. As they moved through the forest, Elias noticed something unusual. Strange markings appeared on the trees, lines carved into the bark that seemed deliberate. They were old and weathered but still visible. Elias examined them carefully. "These aren't just random scratches," he said. "Someone marked this path intentionally." Lyra crouched next to him, her fingers tracing the markings. "Yes," she said softly. "These are warnings. Someone has been here before us, someone who knows the forest well." Elias frowned. "Warnings from who?" Lyra shook her head. "I do not know, but they are not for us. They are for someone else, someone important, maybe me." Elias felt a chill. Lyra was not just a child, she was special. Her family had been royalty on Lithra, and she was the last of her line. The markings were proof that enemies were watching her, waiting for the right time to strike. They continued cautiously, following a hidden path Lyra had sensed. Hours passed and the forest became stranger. The plants glowed faintly, some of them pulsing with soft light. Strange animals peered at them from the shadows, watching silently, neither threatening nor friendly. Lyra moved calmly, her instincts guiding them. "Do you ever feel the forest watching you?" Elias asked quietly. Lyra tilted her head. "Yes, the forest knows us. It senses danger and warns me. That is why we are still alive." Elias respected her abilities more with every step. This girl was more than a survivor. She was wise, careful, and brave beyond her years. Yet he could not ignore the fact that enemies were closing in. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small settlement hidden in a valley, surrounded by thick trees and natural walls of stone. The settlement was home to alien refugees, survivors of the Galactic War who had nowhere else to go. Broken homes, repaired with scraps and skill, lined the narrow paths. Children played quietly, their laughter muted, while adults went about their daily work. Elias and Lyra approached cautiously. A tall figure blocked their path, a watchful alien with green skin and large eyes. He raised one hand. State your names and purpose, the alien said in a firm tone. I am Captain Elias Kane, Elias replied, keeping his voice calm. This is Lyra. We seek temporary shelter and safety. No harm will come to your people from us. The alien studied them for a long moment before nodding. You may stay, he said, but know this, enemies are everywhere. Trust is earned, not given. Inside the settlement, Elias felt the weight of the warning. This place was a refuge, but even here danger existed. Lyra seemed aware of it too, her eyes scanning the surroundings constantly. That night, Elias and Lyra rested in a small hut offered by the settlement. The walls were made of a strange, smooth stone that absorbed sound, creating a sense of quiet security. Lyra sat on a low bench, drawing in the dust with her fingers while Elias cleaned his equipment. Who are these people? Lyra asked softly. Survivors, Elias said. They've escaped the war just like you. They know what it means to fight and hide. They may be able to help us if we need it. Lyra's small hand touched his arm. Do they trust us? Elias shook his head. Not yet, but they will. We have to show them that we mean no harm. As they prepared to sleep, a sudden noise echoed from outside, a loud crash followed by shouting. Elias was instantly alert, his hand on his blaster. Lyra's eyes widened, but she remained calm, ready. They've found us, Elias whispered. Outside, a group of armed figures moved through the settlement. They were mercenaries, different from the first ones they had encountered. Their armor was dark and sleek, with insignias Elias had not seen before. They carried energy weapons and advanced technology that could easily destroy the fragile homes. Elias moved quickly, positioning himself between the intruders and the settlement. Lyra, stay behind me, he shouted. Lyra nodded and crouched low, using the shadows as cover. Her small size made her hard to see, but Elias knew she could be targeted. His heart pounded as he aimed at the approaching mercenaries. The first attack came swiftly. Energy blasts struck the walls, sending sparks flying. Elias returned fire, careful not to hit the settlers. Lyra moved silently, her hands glowing faintly as she used a subtle power to sense the attackers' movements. Together, they worked seamlessly. Elias' skill and experience guided them, while Lyra's instincts and abilities predicted the enemy's actions. The mercenaries were powerful, but they underestimated the combination of human strategy and alien insight. After a tense fight, the mercenaries retreated, leaving destruction behind but no lives lost. The settlers emerged cautiously, looking at Elias and Lyra with a mixture of fear and gratitude. You saved us, one elder said, his voice shaking. How did you do it? Elias shook his head. We worked together, that's all. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. We are stronger when we work together, the elder nodded slowly. Perhaps this is the lesson your people brought from the war, not just strength but cooperation. Maybe humanity has something to teach us after all. Elias felt a small sense of pride, but he did not allow himself to relax. The mercenaries would return, and the threat was far from over. Lyra's importance made her a target, and someone powerful wanted her bloodline for their own gain. Over the next few days, Elias and Lyra helped the settlers repair the damage. They worked side by side, teaching them basic defense techniques and how to hide in the forest if needed. Lyra's knowledge of the land was invaluable, and the settlers began to see her not just as a child, but as a leader. One evening, as the sun dipped below the floating mountains, Elias sat with Lyra on a small hill overlooking the settlement. They will come back, he said quietly. The people hunting you, they will not give up. Lyra nodded, her small hands clenched. Then we must be ready. I cannot let them take me or anyone else here. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. And I will not let them. We fight together, you are not alone. Lyra smiled faintly. I know, that is why I trust you. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Elias saw in Lyra not just a child to protect, but a symbol of hope, a reason to fight, to survive, and to build a better future. As night fell over the settlement, the stars above Lithera shone brighter than ever. Elias kept watch, alert and vigilant, while Lyra slept nearby, her soft breathing steady and calm. The forest whispered around them, carrying secrets and warnings, but for now they were safe. Yet Elias knew the hidden threat was still out there. Someone powerful, someone with resources and ambition was plotting against them. The war was over, but the battles had only just begun. Tomorrow they would face new challenges, new enemies, new dangers. But Elias Kane and Lyra would face them together, human skill and alien insight, united in purpose and courage. For the first time in a long while, Elias felt a sense of hope, not just for himself, but for Lyra, the settlers, and the future of Lithera. The hidden threat loomed, but they were ready to meet it head-on. And so, under the watchful stars, the human soldier and the alien girl prepared for the trials to come, knowing that survival, trust, and courage would be their greatest weapons. The morning sun barely touched the floating peaks of Lithera when Captain Elias Kane and Lyra prepared to leave the hidden settlement. The previous attacks had been a warning. Their enemies were patient, clever, and relentless. Elias had spent hours studying the terrain, mapping possible escape routes, and considering how to confront any future threats. Lyra, as always, moved beside him with calm assurance, her instincts finely attuned to danger. "We can't wait for them to come to us," Elias said, tightening his pack straps. "We have to take the fight to them, or at least outsmart them." Lyra tilted her head, her violet eyes studying him. "Outsmart them?" she asked. Elias nodded. "Yes, they have weapons, numbers, and experience, but they don't know this land like we do, and together, you and I, we can turn their strength against them." Lyra considered this for a moment. "Then we must plan carefully," she said softly. "Every step must be precise." The forest stretched before them, alive and vibrant. Strange plants glimmered with soft light, and the wind carried the scents of unknown flowers. Elias and Lyra moved quietly, keeping to hidden paths. Every rustle and distant call of wildlife set Elias on edge, but Lyra seemed to anticipate the dangers, guiding them around threats before they even appeared. By midday, they reached a high ridge overlooking the valley where their enemies had been seen. Elias scanned the area with binoculars, noting patrol patterns, clusters of enemy armor, and the layout of the ruins below. It was dangerous territory, but they now had the advantage: knowledge. "We need a plan that uses both of our strengths," Elias said. He knelt beside Lyra and spread a rough map of the valley, drawn in dirt and marked with small stones. "I will handle strategy, positioning, and weapons. You guide me through the land, warn me of traps, and use your abilities to sense their movements." Lyra nodded, touching the map lightly with her small hand. "I see paths they cannot see," she whispered. "Hidden spaces, safe points, and weaknesses in their formation. We can use them to our advantage." Elias felt a surge of confidence. Together, they were more than just a soldier and a child. They were a team, combining human ingenuity with alien wisdom. As the sun began to lower in the sky, they descended into the valley using hidden trails Lyra had discovered. The ruins were eerily quiet, shadows stretching across broken walls and burned structures. Elias moved with practiced caution, while Lyra guided him, whispering warnings about weak floors, hidden pits, and patrols nearby. Hours passed as they moved silently, finally reaching a position where they could observe the enemy camp. Several mercenaries were stationed near armored vehicles and energy weapon turrets. The camp was heavily guarded, but Lyra's observations revealed gaps in their formation, weak spots that could be exploited. Elias crouched beside her. "This is it," he whispered. "We strike at night when they least expect it, but we don't just attack. We create distractions, lure them into traps, and avoid unnecessary fighting. We need precision." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Then I will guide them like a shadow." Night fell and the forest grew dark and mysterious. Elias and Lyra moved silently, sticking to the shadows. The enemy camp lay ahead, its lights dim but still alert. Elias signaled to Lyra, and together they began the first stage of their plan: disruption. Lyra whispered softly, her hand glowing faintly. Small stones lifted from the ground and rolled across paths far from their hiding spot. The mercenaries' attention shifted, their patrols moving toward the strange noises. Elias used this distraction to sneak closer, marking weak points and noting patrol rotations. The plan unfolded flawlessly. Lyra guided Elias through hidden passages, warning him of guards and obstacles. Elias placed small devices that jammed communications and disabled some of the camp's defenses. Every step relied on trust, coordination, and careful timing. As the night deepened, Elias gave the signal for the final stage. Lyra used her abilities again, sensing the enemy's positions and subtly influencing their movements. The mercenaries were confused, moving unpredictably, while Elias and Lyra moved through the shadows, striking precisely where needed to disable weapons and create barriers. By the time the first light of dawn touched the valley, their plan was complete. The enemy camp was disorganized, Communication lines were down, and the mercenaries had no idea who had orchestrated their failure. Not a single life had been lost. Elias had insisted on avoiding unnecessary casualties, but their advantage was clear. Elias and Lyra retreated to a safe distance, watching the camp below. "We did it," Elias said quietly, a rare smile breaking his serious demeanor. Lyra nodded. Yes, together. The experience strengthened their bond. Elias realized that while humans were clever and strong, their true power lay in adaptability, strategy, and courage. Lyra's alien abilities complemented that perfectly, creating a combination neither the mercenaries nor any single enemy could predict. Over the next few days, they moved through the forest, avoiding direct contact with enemies while scouting new safe zones. Lyra continued to impress Elias with her instincts, detecting hidden threats and guiding them safely through dangerous areas. He taught her more about strategy, combat readiness, and survival, while she taught him patience, perception, and the subtle ways the forest could be used to their advantage. One evening, as they rested near a small, crystal-clear river, Lyra spoke quietly. "Do you think they will come again?" Elias thought for a moment. "Yes, they are not finished, but now we know their methods, their weaknesses, and we have something they do not, each other, and the advantage of knowing this land." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then we are ready." Elias looked at her, small and determined, and felt a surge of pride. She was more than a child to protect. She was a partner, a symbol of resilience, and a reminder that hope could survive even in a galaxy scarred by war. The following day, they reached a ridge that offered a view of the surrounding forest. From here, Elias could see the paths they had taken, the safe zones Lyra had discovered, and the enemy camps that still posed a threat. "We need to continue moving," he said. "The longer we stay in one place, the more risk we take. But we also need to gather information, learn who is behind these attacks and why they want you." Lyra nodded. "I can sense their patterns, but we need to be careful. They are clever and they will adapt." Elias paused, studying the valley below. "We adapt faster. That is why we survive. Remember this: strategy, patience, and trust. That is our advantage." As they descended toward a hidden ravine, Elias noticed subtle signs of recent enemy activity: disturbed soil, faint footprints, and small energy residues. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly as she sensed the same. "They were here very recently," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Then we must be faster. We cannot give them a chance to regroup." The next few days were a careful dance of observation, strategy, and movement. Elias and Lyra avoided direct confrontations, focusing instead on weakening the enemy's resources, disrupting communication, and creating confusion. Each step relied on Lyra's instincts and Elias' tactical knowledge. Through it all, Elias observed the remarkable ways Lyra adapted. She could sense danger before it arrived, predict movements, and find paths invisible to the human eye. And yet, she was still learning, still growing, and still trusting him to guide her when needed. One night, as they rested in a small cave, Elias spoke quietly. "You know, Lyra, humans are not always the strongest, but we are clever. We survive because we adapt, because we think, because we work together." Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the cave walls. "And together we are stronger than anyone," she said softly. Elias nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Together they had outsmarted enemies with better weapons, greater numbers, and more experience. They had survived not by brute strength, but by using their intelligence, courage, and teamwork. The forest of Lithera stretched endlessly around them, full of hidden dangers and unseen threats, but Elias and Lyra were ready. They had learned to rely on each other, to combine human ingenuity with alien wisdom, and to face whatever challenges awaited with determination and skill. As the stars rose above the floating mountains, Elias looked at Lyra. She was small but fearless. She had survived attacks, guided him through dangerous terrain, and proven that intelligence and courage could overcome any odds. "We'll face more challenges," Elias said quietly, "but I know we can handle them together." Lyra smiled faintly. "Together." And in that moment, under the alien sky, they both knew that no matter how powerful their enemies, no matter how clever or dangerous the threats, they would survive. Not just because of weapons or strength, but because of trust, teamwork, and the combination of human and alien wisdom. The hidden threat still lingered, waiting for an opportunity. But Elias, Kane, and Lyra were ready. And they would meet it, not with fear, but with intelligence, courage, and an unbreakable bond. The morning sun rose over the forest of Lithera, casting long, golden rays across the valley. Captain Elias Kane and Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the enemy camp below. Their months of preparation, planning, and survival had led to this moment. The warlords who had hunted Lyra for her bloodline were gathered in their heavily fortified base, unaware that their strength was about to be turned against them. Elias checked his gear for the last time, ensuring every weapon, device, and tool was ready. Lyra stood beside him, calm and focused. Her violet eyes scanned the terrain, noting weak points, patrol patterns, and hidden pathways. The bond between them had grown stronger with every trial. They were no longer just protector and charge, but a team, a unit built on trust, strategy, and courage. "We need to move carefully," Elias said quietly. "One wrong step and we give them the advantage, but we are ready." "Together we can do this," Lyra nodded. "I can guide us through. I can sense their positions, their plans. They will not see us coming." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "That's what I like about having you on my team." As they descended toward the enemy camp, Lyra led the way, pointing out hidden paths, weak floors, and blind spots in the patrols. Elias followed closely, alert for any sign of trouble. Every move they made was precise, calculated, and silent. Hours passed as they maneuvered through the forest, finally reaching a ridge overlooking the enemy base. From here, Elias could see the full scope of the stronghold. High walls reinforced with energy barriers, armed guards patrolling in organized patterns, and turrets ready to fire at any intruder. It was intimidating, but Elias' mind worked quickly, calculating angles, weaknesses, and opportunities. "We'll divide their attention," Elias whispered. "I'll handle the front, creating distractions. You guide the shadows behind them. We'll disable their weapons and cut off their escape. Precision is key, no unnecessary fighting." Lyra's small hands glowed faintly as she sensed the enemy's positions. "I see the paths. We can move without being detected. They are confident, but that will be their mistake." Night fell and the forest grew dark. The stars above Lithera glimmered like diamonds, casting a faint glow on the treetops. Elias and Lyra moved silently, sticking to the shadows. The enemy camp lay below, unaware of the coming assault. The first stage of their plan began. Elias fired precise shots at key equipment, disabling communication devices and cutting off surveillance systems. Guards rushed to investigate, but they were confused, moving unpredictably. Lyra used her abilities to sense their movements and guide Elias through hidden paths, avoiding detection. Together, they infiltrated the heart of the enemy camp. Lyra pointed out weak spots in the walls and turrets, and Elias carefully neutralized each obstacle. Their coordination was flawless, a dance of human skill and alien insight. Hours passed and the camp grew chaotic. The warlords realized they were under attack, but by then it was too late. Their defenses had been compromised and their soldiers were disoriented. Elias and Lyra moved swiftly, ensuring no lives were unnecessarily lost while achieving complete control over the stronghold. Finally, they reached the command center. The warlords, surprised and cornered, could do nothing as Elias and Lyra entered with quiet authority. "This ends now," Elias said firmly. "No more attacks, no more hunting, no more fear." Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding and calm. "Your plans have failed. You underestimated us. You thought strength alone could win, but you did not count on courage, intelligence, and trust." The warlords fell silent, realizing their defeat. Elias and Lyra had won, not through brute force, but through strategy, cooperation, and determination. After securing the stronghold, they freed any captives and helped repair the damage caused by the mercenaries' previous raids. Lyra's presence inspired hope among the rescued aliens, showing them that courage and resilience could overcome even the most dangerous threats. Elias coordinated the efforts, teaching the survivors to defend themselves and rebuild safely. Word of their victory spread quickly. Settlers and refugees across Lithera came to see Elias and Lyra, offering gratitude and respect. They were not just a soldier and a child. They were symbols of unity, strength, and the possibility of a better future. Elias watched Lyra as she spoke to the gathered settlers. She was small, yet her presence radiated confidence and calm. She listened carefully, offered guidance, and encouraged them to work together. Elias realized that she had grown into a true leader, one whose courage and wisdom could inspire even the most fearful. As the celebrations continued, Elias and Lyra found a quiet spot near a river. The water reflected the stars, creating a peaceful scene after months of struggle and danger. "You did well," Elias said quietly. "I'm proud of you." Lyra smiled faintly. "We did it together. I could not have done it without you." Elias nodded. "And I couldn't have done it without you. You taught me a lot about trust, patience, and seeing the world in ways I never thought possible." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the gentle flow of the river. The forest around them seemed calmer, almost protective, as if it recognized their victory. In the following days, Elias helped organize defenses for the settlers, ensuring that the stronghold would remain safe from any future attacks. Lyra worked alongside him, sharing her knowledge of the land, predicting potential threats, and teaching the younger aliens how to survive and protect themselves. Their combined efforts strengthened the community, creating a bond between humans and aliens that promised a brighter future. One afternoon, as Elias and Lyra walked along a high ridge, they looked out over the forests and mountains of Lithera. The floating peaks glimmered in the sunlight and the forest stretched endlessly below. It was a beautiful sight, a stark contrast to the war and danger they had faced. "Do you think the galaxy will ever be truly safe?" Lyra asked softly. Elias smiled. "Perhaps not entirely. There will always be challenges, danger, and those who seek power. But what we've done here proves that courage, intelligence, and cooperation can make a difference. You've already changed the lives of everyone on this planet." Lyra looked thoughtful. "And you've taught me that strength is not just about fighting. It is about protecting, planning, and helping others." Elias nodded. "Exactly. That is the true strength of humanity, and together we've shown that humans and aliens can overcome even the greatest dangers." The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the land. Elias and Lyra stood together, watching the horizon. The journey had been long, difficult, and full of danger, but they had survived. More than that, they had created something meaningful, a community that could thrive, a bond that could not be broken, and hope that could not be extinguished. In the weeks that followed, Elias received messages from other human outposts and alien settlements. They had heard of his and Lyra's victory and came to offer support, supplies, and friendship. It was a beginning, a sign that the galaxy could be rebuilt through courage, trust, and cooperation. Lyra, once a frightened and hunted child, had grown into a symbol of hope. Her people's legacy was no longer just a memory. It was a living, thriving community guided by wisdom, bravery, and compassion. Elias watched her as she spoke to the settlers, giving advice and encouragement. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction and pride. Protecting her had been more than a mission. It had been a journey of growth, understanding, and connection. One evening, as the stars shimmered above, Elias and Lyra sat quietly by the river once more. "Do you think we will have more challenges ahead?" Lyra asked. Elias chuckled softly. "Of course, life always has challenges, but whatever comes, we face it together." Lyra smiled. "Together." And with that, they both knew that the future, though uncertain, was full of promise. They had survived impossible odds, outsmarted powerful enemies, and protected what mattered most. Humanity and alien wisdom had combined to create victory, and their example would inspire generations to come. The forest of Lithera whispered around them, carrying the promise of new beginnings. The war was over, but the work of rebuilding, protecting, and inspiring had just begun. Elias and Lyra, soldier and child, human and alien, stood as symbols of courage, hope, and unity. Together, they looked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them next, confident that no challenge was too great when trust, intelligence, and bravery guided the way. The stars above shone brightly, a reminder that even after the darkest times, light could return, and that humanity, with all its courage and ingenuity, could help shape that light. Elias Kane and Lyra smiled at each other, knowing that the bond they had forged was stronger than any threat. And as night fell over Lithera, they both understood one simple truth. Together, they could face anything, survive anything, and build a future worth protecting.